This video demonstrates an arthroscopic subscapularis repair and biceps tenodesis using the Arthrex Knotless Fibertak biceps tenodesis anchor. Here we can see that the biceps tendon is clearly unstable and it subluxes into the subscapularis tear. Interval tissue as well as the upper rolled edge of the subscapularis as well as lesser tuberosity is then debrided using a combination of the shaver and a ring curette. I then check to see if the tendon is reducible and if additional releases have to be performed. Next, an 8.25 cannula is placed over a switching stick. Next, using a scorpion, a fiber link suture tape suture is placed in the upper rolled edge of the subscapularis. I use a knot pusher to push the link suture more medially. A punch is then used to make a pilot hole in the lesser tuberosity. The suture is then loaded onto a 4.75 swivel lock anchor, which is placed into the lesser tuberosity for the subscapularis repair. If the bone is not of good quality, a bigger anchor is placed. I then place 2 spinal needles in the biceps tendon to stabilize the tendon. Once this is done, the biceps tendon is then tenotomized at the origin. We then place the scope in the subacromial space and a subacromial bursectomy is performed. The needles could be visualized in the upper left-hand corner of the picture. You want to make sure that a good bursectomy is performed so that we can aid in visualization of the biceps tendon. We then go more anteriorly and the shoulder is flexed up to relax the deltoid. And again, we continue with the bursectomy. You can see that the biceps tendon is coming into visualization from top to bottom. There are some bleeders here, so care should be taken not to get into the bleeders. The biceps tendon usually feels soft compared to the surrounding bone, and that's how it's identified. We then come in with the electrocautery probe, and the transverse humeral ligament is opened up and the biceps tendon is exposed, again making sure not to get into the bleeders. I make sure that the bicipital groove is free of all synovitic tissue. We are still working from the lateral portal and viewing from the posterior portal at this point. Once adequate visualization is obtained, we create an accessory anterolateral portal using a spinal needle. This portal is generally halfway between the lateral portal and the anterior portal. Through this portal, we continue our synovectomy in order to visualize the bicipital groove better. Sometimes it is helpful to retract the tendon more laterally using a switching stick. A passport cannula is then placed. I then switch the camera and come in from the lateral portal, and through this portal it is much easier to see down the bicipital groove. The switching stick is brought in through a percutaneous stab incision, and the biceps tendon is retracted more posteriorly. The guide for the Arthrex Knotless Fibertak Biceps Tenodesis anchor is then placed on the bone. I usually tap with a mallet to make sure that I have a stable grip on the bone. Next, the drill is used to make a pilot hole, and I usually cycle this a couple of times to make sure that there is enough space for the anchor to be placed. And the anchor is then placed through the guide into the pilot hole. In my experience, it is beneficial to place the anchor more anterior or medial to the biceps tendon as opposed to posterior, and this makes it easier to retrieve the sutures after the anchor is placed. Once the anchor is placed, I tug on the sutures lightly to make sure that the anchor is engaged. We then let go of the biceps tendon with the switching stick, and as you can see, it is moved more anteriorly, and this makes it easier to retrieve the sutures around the tendon. I then come in with a crab claw and grab the blue working suture around the biceps tendon. This is then brought out the passport cannula. I then come back in and grab the white loop suture and bring it more posterior to the biceps tendon. I then come in from the anterior portal with an ice tongue and grab the biceps tendon, and through the passport portal we come in with the piercer and go through the tendon and grab the white loop suture and bring it through the tendon. The ice tongue that is coming in from the anterior portal assists in providing some tension on the biceps tendon so that it is easier to go through the biceps tendon with the piercer. Once this loop is brought through the tendon, we then come back in with a crab claw and go through this loop and grab the blue working suture. I then come in with an ice tong and grab the loop end of the shuttle suture as well as the blue working suture and bring these out to make sure there's no tangle. The blue working suture is then loaded on the loop end of the shuttle suture, and this is brought into the wound and loaded onto the anchor itself. Once this is done, we reciprocally tension the blue working suture and the white loop suture. And again, you can see in the video that with reciprocal tension on these sutures, we are able to achieve an onlay biceps tenodesis, which is satisfactory. The sutures are then cut, and using the electrocautery probe, we cut the biceps tendon more proximal to this fixation, and the spinal needles are then taken out of the skin, and the remainder of the biceps tendon is removed. Thank you for watching.